when you're stuck, right? Like you can't just rely on the way that things used to work before.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people do. They just don't want to change.
Yeah.
Right? Most of the time, we don't like change. You know, the horse and buggy worked for a while until it didn't, right? Until the car came out and then it was like, all right, this is a whole new thing, right? And now this whole world changed. It changes, you know, every few years. You have to kind of keep up with these different changes. And what's happening right now is regulation. You know, regulation is a big deal. You have to look at what's working, and then you have to also look at like...
So I'm going to hop right into it. What's working right now?
RBP. Yeah.
What is RBP?
So retail buyer program, basically allowing us to wholesale to retail buyers that get FHA, VA, USDA loans, very similar to like a Novation.
Yeah.
But that's really what saved our company from just doing stuff for cash buyers.
Yeah.
That's really, I think, the next level. And then of course, you know, we're doing a lot with takedown funding.
Yeah. So I've been telling that to people, especially our students and everything, for the last 3-4 months. And I'm like, guys, if you're not doing novations,
Yep.
you are just, I don't know how you're going to stay in business.
It's true. And it also gives you the edge.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you as a wholesaler don't have to buy stuff at 40, 50, 60 cents on the dollar, depending on where you are. You're national right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, we do national, but I would say half, maybe a little more than half is in Vegas.
Okay. So 50% in Vegas.
Yeah.
So we do about 25% in Oklahoma, where we used to be 100% in Oklahoma, right?
Right. Okay.
But now we closed in over 35 different states.
Okay.
But mostly, we do most of our deals through 15 different states.
That's a lot of different states.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. We'll talk about your marketing and everything, but
Sure.
I'm curious what led you to the conclusion you had to do that and how it saved your company. Like, what were you seeing as the precursor that said, hey, I need to switch? Because right now I'm seeing a lot of people like stuck.
Yeah.
And they don't know why they're stuck and how to fix it.
When you're stuck, right, like you can't just rely on the way that things used to work before. And that's what a lot of people do. They just don't want to change.
Yeah.
Right? Most of the time, we don't like change. And so if we're just continuing with the same thing, like, oh, it'll eventually get better, and it doesn't,
Yeah.
we got to figure out a way, right? It's like, you know, the horse and buggy worked for a while until it didn't, right? Until the car came out and then it was like, all right, this is a whole new thing, right? And now this whole world changed. And I think that's what happens with real estate in general. It changes, you know, every few years. You have to kind of keep up with these different changes. And what's happening right now is regulation. You know, regulation is a big deal that, you know, NAR hates wholesalers. Let's just put it out there for the most part, right? They don't want to regulate. They want to regulate wholesaling. They look at most wholesalers like they're Joe, the used car salesman, that they take advantage of a 90-year-old woman that, you know, it just, they look bad for wholesalers, right? And so we want to create obviously our ratings are great, over 4.5 on Google. We have great testimonials on our website, and we got people that love working with our company and basically, you know, tell us that if we weren't there, they don't know what they would have done, right? I think that, you know, you have to look at what's working, and then you have to also look at, like, you know, what's not working, right? And what wasn't working anymore was just selling to cash buyers, right? And that's really what.
But why wasn't it working anymore?
Because cash buyers, they want to buy stuff whenever rates go up, Ryan. They want to buy it cheaper, right? At the end of the day, it's like they go to the bank. They're trying to put out as least amount of money as possible to be able to buy the deal, right? That's the only difference really between wholesalers and fix and flippers for the most part. Fix and flippers usually have credit, they have line of credit, or they have money or something where they can buy the deal, take it down, fix it up, and flip it and put it on the open market. Wholesalers tend to, and it's what you're taught because it's like the least barrier entry, just go sign up a contract. Just get it under contract, right? And then go sell your contract to another fix and flipper or another cash buyer. Well, you can't go sell, you know this, you can't go sell your contract to a fix and flipper that's getting an FHA, a VA, or USDA loan, because why? Loan seasoning, right? They require you to own that property. What loan seasoning is, it's a timeline that they require you to own the property for 90 days or more. And wholesalers are just, they're trying to get rid, I call it hot potato, right? You get it under contract, you're trying to sell it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? For a profit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I guess back to the original point of, you know, cash buyers want it at deeper discounts now because of rates. The market hasn't been as good the last couple of years. So they're not willing to pay as much. And
Right.
so, in order to make a spread, we essentially got to just cut out the flipper and go straight to retail.
Right.
And that's what, RBP or Novations or, I even, when people ask me, like, what is a Novation? I say, it's basically a net listing at the end of the day. That's the easiest way to explain it.
Yeah.
A seller wants 400K, maybe it's worth 440. And you look at that and you're like, there's no way you could wholesale this. There's no way you could even flip it. And it has to be a listing. But the reality is, it does have to be a listing, but you can make a spread based on what you have it under contract for versus just saying, hey, pay 3%, hey, pay 6%, because you're providing a different type of service to the seller. I think that people, whenever they ask, like, man, why would somebody do a novation or a net listing or one of these things? Why not just list it?
Sure.
It's because they want convenience. They don't want to pick anything. They don't want to do repairs.
No work.
They don't want to even negotiate realtor commissions. They don't even want to negotiate repair request and counter offers and deal with, like, they don't want to deal with anything.
I always tell people, like, whenever they ask that, why wouldn't they just work with an agent? Why can't an agent just do this?
They don't like agents.
Well, the agent's not going to fix the property. The agent's going to tell you, go get the property fixed.
Yeah.
Right. So an RBP or Novation, you actually do a lot of those repairs or get them facilitated. And the best way to, like, create a little analogy for them to get it most of the time is when you go get your oil changed, do you change it?
Yeah.
No, you take it.
I don't even have a Tesla. I don't even have oil.
You
I have
don't
a
have
Tesla.
oil, right?
Yeah.
I don't. But most people, when they go get their oil changed, right? Do they get underneath there? Well, some people, very few people still get underneath there and change it. Which there's nothing wrong with it. But most people, they go in, they have the oil change.
Yeah.
Lots of people have the oil change. They don't get underneath. Why? Because it's convenience, like you said.
Yeah, it's convenience. And people are willing to pay for convenience. They're
100%.
willing to pay for simplicity. And I kind of changed the motto of our home buying company this year. And instead of just being like the best home buyer, I just said, you know what? I want Home Run Offer to be the simplest way to sell your home.
There you go.
That's it. Just make it the simplest way.
Fast food version of real estate, whether or not you agree with it or not, is what people are attracted to.
Yeah.
They have time issues already. There's so many things that try to pull our attention away, right? Trying to sell your house, all the things you need to do and get a price that you want is not one of those things for most people that are not in that industry, not in that world, they even want to mess with. It's like trying to tell them like they have to go to college and take a class. Like it really is. It's almost that foreign for most people. And we've had surveys about this of like, why didn't you? In fact, if you're a wholesaler and you're a wholesaler, what's really interesting is go back to your last 20, 30 people that you sold deals to and have a conversation with them and just say, why didn't you just go the existing convenient route of working with the quote agent, right? And it isn't because because they don't look at it like convenience. It's work. It's I had to do this. The agent told me I have to fix up the property. The agent told me they're going to be trampling through they're going to bringing all these people. They don't know when. I'm going to have to make myself have to get off work and all these other things. We still have some of those issues as wholesaling. You still got to show the house and all those things. But the way that we have a different kind of spin on it is we take care of all that for them, especially with RBP and Novations. You take care of everything for them. Any repairs are going to get done. You can have them facilitated. They don't have to worry about it. All we have to do is agree on a price that you're happy with, you walk away with, and then let us take care of the rest.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of sellers also value certainty of price.
100%.
People are like, you know what,
Certainty.
400, I'm good. Like, I don't need 410. Like, if I get 400, I'll be happy if I don't have to deal with any of this stuff. And I know that I'm going to get 400. It's the classic case of, I don't know, like if you watch Deal or No Deal. Or
Dude, I love Deal or No
any
Deal.
of these things where it's like, man, you could have bigger upside, but there's, who knows what could happen, or you could take the certainty. And almost always people opt for certainty.
Sure.
That's human nature.
Sure.
And so, if people wonder why would people do this, why would sellers do it? I can promise you, we've done so many of them now that they just want to do it. I mean, we're actually now pitching Novation as like the main offer.
Okay.
So whenever we get leads, right now we do predominantly social media leads.
Yeah.
Most of these sellers, especially with inbound marketing, are already talking to different people. Like they're like, oh, I've already submitted on Open Door or like whatever, right?
It went to 3 or 4 different people.
Yeah. So, basically it's just like, what are you going to offer? And it's crazy because the sales cycle is so much smaller now with how we're doing it because they're already like in that motivated mindset because, sometimes they've talked to people, other times they haven't. We just literally have cut out all the fluff in our sales process that we used to have before, where it's like trying to go dig deep for motivation. It's like, bro, they're motivated. They want to sell. It's not even about any of the, it's literally about price almost 80+% of the time with most sellers. The people who are willing to give super big discounts, there's some kind of like other external motivation.
You're right.
But that's 10% of sellers max. So what do you do about the other 90% who are just like, bro, I just need to sell my house. Just how do I make this as easy as possible?
Right. Yeah.
That's it. That's literally it.
Yeah. If you don't have a tool in your toolbox like RBP or Novation, you just miss those deals too. Plus, there's a lot of offers the wholesalers made last year that didn't work in their CRM, and there's gold in your CRM. We've pulled countless amount of deals out of our old leads that just didn't work before RBP that absolutely work on RBP or Novation. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just what I'm now telling our students and everything. I'm like, guys, you have to have this. You got to know how to do this because, like, at the end of the day, if 80% of the sellers you talk to, you're going to spend all this money on marketing and they want close to market value, do you just say that that's a bad lead?
Right.
Or are you just a bad salesperson?
Right. Right.
And I always tell them you're a bad salesperson. You're a bad investor. You don't know what to do with them.
You don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
That's on you. It's not the lead, it's you. And in my opinion, as people become more sophisticated, because sellers are becoming more sophisticated,
yeah.
they have far more options today than they did 10 plus years ago when you and I got started.
Right.
And so what, do we think in 10 years from now they're going to have less options? Right. Or are they going to keep having more options
right,
and more ways to sell their home for closer to market value? And like, I just think about it like this too. If we're competing and we're both talking to the same seller and you're just doing cash offer for 70% of market value. And I'm over here like, dude, I'll give you 90% of market value.
Right.
And I actually can. What are you going to do?
Right.
It's like,
you're going to lose the deal.
I'm going to stump you like every day of the week.
Right.
You can't do anything about it.
Right.
And then all they could say is, well, they're just going to list it.
Right.
And if you do the sale right, it's like, yeah, they told me that.
Yeah. And if you know how to do RBP or Novation, you can get other wholesalers that don't. And actually, they've heard about it. They just refuse to do, I'm just going to keep my cash buyers.
Yep.
You can buy those leads. They will sell you their old leads. Yeah. Like they're not doing anything with them. They're like, that guy wants 80 cents on the dollar, 90, 85. I'll sell the lead. How much? And so you could buy that lead for $50 or more, believe it or not. We buy leads from other wholesalers like that.
Well, it's funny you say that. So, I have a lead gen company called Lead Kitchen. And so, we run my ads nationwide. People can buy leads inside their market, right? And so like one of our guarantees is, hey, if you don't like it, doesn't work out, you can opt to send us your leads and then we'll chop it 50-50 if we close it.
There you go.
As just like a little guarantee of like, hey, you know what? If it didn't work out, all good, but at least let's try and make something out of them.
Let's try to squeeze the lemon.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we send them to our team.
Yeah.
And guess what? We end up converting them
to
Novations. And I'm like, guys, this is not a lead problem. This is you.
You problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyways, it's just an eye-opening thing that, like you said, there's so much money in people's CRMs if they know how to do this.
Yeah.
But
100%.
For you guys, obviously you guys have pivoted to this as well. A lot of big people I know have pivoted to this. What indicators were you seeing before? Was it just like, man, we're locking up way less contracts? We're just not performing. Money's not coming in. Like, what forced you into this pivot?
The big thing, money wasn't coming in as much.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. The second thing is just, fix and flippers that we would sell. So whenever you're selling to cash buyers, the cool thing is you have relationships with cash buyers.
Yeah.
Especially for us, we've been doing national now for, we went and did it, I think right at COVID. So was it 2019, 2018, right in there. Mm-hmm. Sean Terry, one of my good friends and business partners, he said he was moving away from Phoenix and going national, right? Yeah. And doing this virtual model. And, we were having the same issues. Like, man, we can't get into doors. We were primarily just working in Oklahoma City in the greater metro area, about 10 counties. Makes up about like a 1.5 million MSA. That's usually where we'd work, and some stuff in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we just weren't able to get inside homes anymore. And we were a belly only company. You go meet them, sit on the couch, have the conversation. But we weren't able to do it. So we had to get really good at signing stuff up over the phone.
Yep.
And that's when we pivoted. And then Sean kind of said, hey, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to these different states, go national. You're going to lose a little bit of money for a little bit, which we did. We lost money for 6 months.
Yeah.
But he said, then you're going to hit a couple of home runs, and the home runs will make up for the loss. And that's exactly what happened. We hit a really big home run, multi-six-figure deals out of California, Washington, stuff like that. And that really made up for about a 6-month loss. And then we just kept on trucking from there.
So let me ask you about that, because I want, back to just my philosophy. I always tell people, if you're going to do marketing, you better do it at least 90 days.
Yeah.
Preferably longer.
Yeah.
But if you can't afford it for 90 days, then you should not do it, period.
100%.
And
same thing with direct mail, at least 6 months or more.
100%.
Yeah.
And you're over here saying, hey, we were like not doing good.
Right.
And then we still didn't do good.
Yep.
For another 6 months, but you stuck with it.
Anticipation, knowing that we're probably going to lose money. So walked into
You went into it with the right mindset.
I went and got a credit line for losing money. I don't make sense. I hope I didn't, but I was like, I'm going to get this credit line for losing money.
Because you knew it was just going to take time.
I just knew it's going to take time. And it was, we were signing up stuff that we shouldn't even have signed up. Like when you go into a national model from a one state that you're working on, you're trying to like make money out of anything. So we're signing up like houses in West Virginia and Virginia. Like we shouldn't have signed up those deals. Like we're signing up deals where we couldn't sell those things. Like, we signed up deals in Alaska, and like I shouldn't have signed up this deal in Alaska. Like it was just crazy. These little, like we signed up a bunch of stuff we shouldn't have signed up, and we just learned and then we had major issues with title companies, like all these different title companies that you're dealing with until you start dealing with like a couple of main title companies, Clothesline and Pora. Those have been really good for us and a few others. But like these other like many little like silo title companies and these little, population of less than 3,000, right? Like you had to learn like parameters, like filters, like, okay, we probably shouldn't market to anything like in less than, 10,000 population because it's going to be harder to get rid of it. And then we had to learn like, okay, most investors don't like to invest more than an hour to maybe an hour and a half, but really sticking within an hour of a major metro area.
Yeah.
So if you can market to a major metro area and you're like, oh, my leads are $300 or $500 and, Miami or Phoenix or whatever. If you step 1 hour just outside of that and these little little cities outside of it, just within an hour of that major metro, and you're telling Google, like if you're on pay-per-click and you're telling Google, like you want to be able to market that, you're going to get leads in Phoenix. You're going to get leads in wherever your major area is.
Yeah.
But you're also going to get them outside that little area, and you'll get investors that want to invest outside the area. But when you step outside of that, that's when it starts getting really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you start going nationwide. Obviously, it takes half a year to figure out.
Yeah.
Start seeing results.
Yeah.
Was part of that you were still trying to do cash offers and you had not figured out novations and everything?
100%. Yeah, man. We didn't start making RBP till 2020, I think it was. Yeah. 2020 is when we started doing RBP. And then we just basically at the beginning, it wasn't even RBP. We were just trying to figure out a way to sell to retail buyers. And at first I was just like, I went to our general counsel attorney for our title company. We'd done a lot of deals with them. And I said, hey, I got FHA buyers that want to buy my wholesale deals. I can't sell to them because I have to wait 90 days. Like, is there a way around this? It's like, no, there's not really a way around it unless you can cloud title. It's like, oh, I used to cloud title on short sales. So let me go try this out. And we attempted to do a couple of things, and some things worked, some things didn't. So we're trying to figure this out. And then finally we kind of figured out the way. We had two versions of RBP, which was we had an affidavit of equitable interest that we would file with the county to basically cloud that title, and then we would get paid at closing. So we wouldn't break the chain of title. So we would basically just have the title clouded.
They'd pay to remove it.
And we pay to remove it, right? The challenge with that is that it's great if you have one state.
Yeah.
But when you start going to multiple states and you're dealing with all these other little counties, they don't even recognize equitable interest.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't even recognize, these documents that you normally use at your regular title company, and they won't allow you to file it. Or they want you to have it notarized, or they want you to have 2 witnesses. And it was becoming a nightmare. So then we did a second version of RBP, which we call our receipt method. And that's been working amazing because we don't have to mess with counties now.
So
now we
the receipt method any different?
Basically, we just create there's language in all mortgages. This is what's interesting. All mortgages have a blanket authorization that you sign. All mortgages. It's required for them to have that because they have to be privy to the title and have to be privy as a party to that contract whenever you go to close. Right?
Okay.
Makes sense. They have to be able to see the settlement statements and all that. You sign the documentation with a mortgage for a blanket authorization. Well, we created our own RBP blanket authorization that allows us to be an RBP manager. And whenever we go and we're talking to the title company and we have their permission from the owner to be able to do that, we stay in that process all the way up to whenever we are selling the deal. So blanket authorization allowed us to be able to basically see the settlement statements, review it, all that other stuff. And then, just like other mortgages, you have a notice of payoff, right? You have a payoff notice. So we create our little RBP notice of payoff, and we send it just like a mortgage payoff. And that really changed the game for us because now everybody understands that. There's not anything new. Equitable interest is kind of a new thing if they don't understand it. Like, what is this, But everybody understands blanket authorization. Everybody understands the payoff notice.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah, it's been working. And you don't have to worry about counties anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have to go cloud title. Now, when you cloud title, as you know, you also kind of save the deal, right?
Nothing can happen.
Nothing can, most
less
of the time,
likely to happen.
Less likely, right? Because if they've already filed a notice of like list pending, they can technically close over you, but most of the time they don't. Most of the time title companies don't want to risk it, right?
Yep.
So you don't have that now, right? But what I found is like a lot of these wholesalers aren't competing to a point in the beginning of this with these deals. Like they're like, go ahead, take that 85 cent on the dollar deal or 80 cent on the dollar deal, right? Because they can't do anything with it anyway. So you don't have to worry about someone coming and stealing.
You just worry about the
deal.
seller at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas you have a little more leverage with the first method at the end versus the second method.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, obviously everything has its pros and cons.
If we get into a deal and we think like
there might be
an issue, we're going to file. We're going to file something on county just because we're going to try to protect it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But most of the time, before we had to do that on every deal, right?
Yeah.
But now we're it's like maybe 10% of the time. Yeah.
Okay. So anyone listening to this still, I mean, obviously we're talking about a lot of complex things with how novations could work and everything else. This has been such an important thing for me and my business and obviously Cory's business and for our students. So I actually created my first course in almost 2 years. Like I haven't made courses in a while, but I made a novation specific course just to like walk people through it very simply, give them all the documents, tell them which ones need to get notarized.
Yep.
Step by step. And anyone can get it for $3.
It's awesome.
So
crazy deal.
Yeah. wealthyuniversity.com. You get to try Wealthy U for $3 for a week, and it's just $97 a month after. But even if you just want to go and take the course and then bounce, you could, and be good for $3. So anyways, my gift to everyone else. But
awesome. That's awesome value, man.
Yeah. Now, that being said, for you guys, I want to just talk a little bit about, how you even got to this point, because you've done over 2,000 transactions. I mean, we know that novations are working well. We know closing over the phone is working well. Closing over the phone is what we do now pretty much on every deal, which is crazy. But, how did it lead? How did it lead to this point? Like, where'd you get started?
So in the beginning, like how I got started?
Yeah, when you were born. No, I'm just kidding. So
I came out of the womb and said, "Do you want to sell your house?"
Yeah. Southern boy.
The first words were
cash offer.
Cash offer. So 10,000 foot view, right? Whenever I got involved with real estate. So I can go back before that. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always enjoyed negotiating. I've always enjoyed, The process of barter and trade, I always thought it was really cool. Even when I was very young, like when I'm talking about 7, 8 years old, they had these things. You may or may not remember this. I'm guessing you don't, but they have like Stompers and Transformers and G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And these little figurines. So I would trade these things back and forth for like Stomper for 2 G.I. Joes, or,
Yeah.
I'd trade like one of my G.I. Joe characters for like the milk when you go to school, like a couple of milks and orange juice. I was always doing this like barter and trade thing, Ryan. And as I got a little older, I started doing more and more things with sales. I thought sales was always fascinating to me. In fact, I still to this day believe that if you know sales, you're never going to starve.
Yeah.
It's like one of the best traits that you can learn is sales. And then after that, marketing, right? But sales is really crucial. And it's not, people think it's like a cuss word, but if you understand what sales really is, it's really serving someone at the highest level as long as you do it with integrity. The challenge is most people, when they do set a lot of sales, they just get into personal gain. And they lose the idea of, if I get this deal going, if there's a deal happens here, it needs to work for both people, where the person feels like they had a good deal and you got a good deal too, right? Not, can't be just one-sided.
Yeah.
So I always just enjoyed this idea of sales. And then I got involved with selling Kirby home cleaning systems, which were Kirby vacuum cleaners. And man, I used to knock on...
How old are you?
Dude, I was 15 years old.
Selling vacuums. Okay.
15 years old selling vacuums. I would knock on 100 doors. I had the KPIs down. 100 doors a day in the Oklahoma heat of like 100 degrees, and put on 3 demonstrations, and I'd sell 1 Kirby. 100 doors, put on 3, sell 1. And then eventually knock on 100 doors, put on 3 and sell 2. And eventually knock on 100 doors, put on 3 demonstrations, sell 3. So I had like lots of plaques of 3 in a day, and I started really getting good at this. And
your demonstrations never went up?
Dude, my demonstrations never went up. It seemed like I would just start selling more and more. And you become a little bit more confident with like, you're just going to buy this.
How much are you making on a vacuum?
Back then it was like $500. So it was pretty
That was
good.
your commission?
That was pretty good money.
How much were these vacuums?
They're about $1,800. And then when you finance them, they were over $2,000.
How the heck?
It was just
I don't even know what
insane.
vacuums cost now, but
Dude,
that's crazy.
it's a lot less than that now. It's probably like $400 or $500. But these are like space age, like I'm telling you, like the same materials like NASA used was on a Kirby. Like I still remember the stuff telling you.
Yeah.
I would like tell people
NASA
like,
uses this in space.
they would like lady would like walk, like, we vacuum, and then she would like smile. I go, when's the last time you smiled cleaning the house? It was just like, I just remember all these like these things were called sales clinchers. I remember all this stuff. And
did they train you?
Oh, dude, Brian Tracy, Dale Carnegie.
No, like
Zig
the vacuum
Ziglar.
company gave you all those people and trained you? Like, how did that work?
No. I had to go out and knock on 100 doors in the neighborhood, just blanket a neighborhood.
No, I know, but when you like signed up to be a rep, did they give you sales training, or how did that work?
Yeah. I was trained under a manager of how it works and all that. But like just the demonstration part, like the part of selling, I had to go knock on doors. And I always tell people, if you did door-to-door sales, anything, it's the best rejection training you'll ever have. Mm-hmm. People need to understand getting slapped in the face and being told no 1,000 times is the best thing that can happen to you for your persistence.
Yeah.
Because I got to a place where it's like every no was just closer to a yes. Instead of everybody's telling me no. No one's going to buy this thing. No one, I might as well just quit, you know. And so many people are, like so many people are soft, man. They just, if they can't do it first 10 times or 20 times or whatever, they give up.
Yeah.
And I just never had that mentality. I always had the mentality of, it's going to work. It's just that one didn't work.
Yeah.
And I would always learn, I'd look at like little things, like I'd go up to the door and I could see little fingerprints on it. It's like, oh, they have kids. Or I'd see a really nice car in the driveway and like, oh, they have credit, or like they didn't manicure their yard real well. We're like, oh, they don't really care. Like maybe how clean
I
they
probably
are.
don't even need to knock this
And they
house.
don't knock that door, right? So
they can't even take care of their outside. They definitely ain't taking care of their inside. They're not carpet cleaning.
There's like moss, mold stuff hanging on this window. It's like I'm passing
there
on
ain't
this
no
one.
way they're buying this.
But I digress. So from there, I learned a lot of sales training. Okay, so you're asking me where all this began.
Let me add to this too for anyone listening. Like, I agree that sales is like the easiest way to start making money and you need it. Every business owner needs it, and you got to learn how to sell somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned marketing being right after that, and I agree. Marketing would be the second step you learn, but marketing is the more important thing overall. You know, like you first start selling, that helps you just like feed yourself
The confidence
and make money.
level. Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, all right, in order to scale sales, you got to get really good at marketing.
Yeah.
And that will dictate how big you can go.
Well, really, I mean, even with marketing, it's really about the leads, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to have people to sell to,
Yes.
right? But you have to have the skill of being able to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this training when I first got involved with real estate, like very first there's a guy named Carlton Sheets.
Yep.
You remember this guy?
I mean, I've heard his name a million times.
Dude, he would have these little ads in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, you know, no money down real estate, no money down real estate. And I would practice these little pitches with my friend. Like just,
It seems like he was the first wholesaling guy.
I think Ron LeGrand was the first guy I learned like real wholesale.
So Carlton and Ron.
Yeah, for sure.
And then like when I was coming up, this was, you know, the early 2010s, it felt like who you just mentioned, Sean Terry. And like
his podcast came out in like 2005, I think. And
and like it
changed
seemed
the
like
name.
he was more so like the first digital guy teaching it.
Yeah, everybody I talked to is like a student of Sean's, it seems like.
Yeah. And then it seems like, you know, okay, I mean, those guys. So if Ron and Carlton were like the print media guys.
Yeah,
And then
right.
Sean was like the first digital guy using this stuff.
More tech stuff. Yep.
Yeah. And then I would say like, you know, now we're in this new area of YouTubers and stuff where, you know, there's a lot of people learning from me and others who are on YouTube. And it's like, that's the next era.
You're right. Yeah, I think you're right. The influencers are just using their audience and their attention to basically create whatever they need to feed the audience whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, back to, you know, so Kirby's and all that stuff. So I basically got out of Kirby's and I started to, one of my friends had a company. I was at a church, actually, believe it or not, the church called Life Church. You know this.
Craig Rochelle.
And so at the time, Craig and I started helping lead praise and worship. And there's a guy named Bobby Greenwald there that created this app called YouVersion and now called the Bible app. And Bobby just sold, shout out to Bobby, great dude, and Melissa and their whole family. That what's cool is Bobby just sold one of his, and he's so humble, but he just sold a company. I think it was called, he's going to get on to me if I say it wrong. I think it was called snowball.com.
Okay.
And it was like a pro wrestling website. Anyway, he sold it for like several millions or something like that. And I remember just thinking like, holy crap, like this internet thing, this internet thing really works. Like I was like, I thought this was just like a, you know, like a fad thing, but like Bobby is somebody I know personally that like sold his internet company. And it really inspired me, you know, like he gave me a lot of great like inspiration and motivation to be like, maybe I should look into this internet thing. So I started to get involved with all kinds of internet businesses, dude. I mean, I'm telling you, I was a domain broker for a while. I sold Ginsu knives on eBay. I sold almost 10,000 Ginsu knives a month for several months on eBay.
Hold on. All
yeah,
right.
man.
What's a Ginsu knife?
Ginsu knife is like a knife that cuts a can in half. It was like an old thing on an info commercial. It's like, you know,
like it saws it in half, or it straight karate chops
it could like just cut a knife. It's so sharp. It's basically like a blade that was like so razor thin.
What's it for though?
It was for cutting, for cutting
like
food and stuff like that. Yeah, but they used it for the marketing. Like it's so sharp,
it can cut a can.
And just cut a can in half, right?
That's tight. That is good marketing.
It was great marketing. But at the time, gosh, you're making me go back, man. But at the time, and this is probably this got to be in my early 2000s.
You're selling these on eBay.
Yeah, early 2000s. And I'm selling these Ginsu knives, and I started to find out like, when they were selling for $19. Gosh, it's been a while. So $19 and then like $10 for shipping, something like that. Okay. And, I remember thinking like, that seems like really a lot of money for like these little flimsy knives. Like, I wonder where they buy them from. So I started researching online and found like where they buy a lot of these knives from. And there was a drop shipping company. Mm-hmm. So you could buy them. I think it was like at the time $3 or $4. You could buy one of the.
And it's from China.
It's from China, yeah. And but you had to drop ship it. So if you drop shipped it, so if you understand the difference between drop shipping and then buying in quantity. Buying in quantity, you store it.
Yep.
And you get it for cheaper, but you have to store it, right? Drop shipping, you just send a paper receipt in an order form, and they ship it for you.
You had to send order forms in back then?
Dude, I had to send thousands of order forms. In fact, I had people living at my house that were basically going to FedEx in the morning and in the evening.
Wow.
And my garage was full of FedEx knives, and everybody on Christmas and birthdays were getting FedEx knives. It was just hilarious, man.
Wow.
But I remember like thinking, okay, I think I can do a better job on marketing. So I came out, and so the way I started to win was I put 99 cents for Ginsu knives with $10 shipping and handling.
Right.
And it was the thing, they first came out, eBay came out with it called a Dutch auction.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
So it's like whenever one would sell, another one would pop up immediately. Most people had to, like, whenever the auction ended, they had to go create a new auction, all that. Dutch auction, you put, let's say 50, and when one sold, right, it would just immediately pop up another one.
Yeah.
So I started selling hundreds of these Ginsu knives, just at better marketing.
How much were you making per knife?
At the time, I think I was making like $7.
So how much did you make in that business?
I made pretty good amount of money. I mean, but the challenge was whenever drop shipping would run out of inventory, I'd have this backlog and stuff. So, I mean, I was probably making $50,000, $60,000 in that business, probably every month.
$50K net?
It wasn't net, 'cause I still had
That's
to pay
gross.
my guys. Yeah.
So what were you netting? Probably
Like
20K a month net.
It was pretty good for,
slinging knives.
Slinging knives. And then I started to learn, like, okay, this is a hustle. This is like a really, and I was going to either have to hire more people and sell Ginsu knives, but I started to see the writing on the wall with, like, the Ginsu knives prices were coming down more and more, and people were caring less about this whole little
The fad
Ginsu.
was ending.
The fad was ending, which is what happens a lot of times. If you get in the beginning, you can ride
I did
it.
a podcast with this guy, Abraham Gray.
Yeah.
And he talked a lot about that. He started so many businesses over the years.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, I honestly try to just time trends. And he's like, I look at Reddit, I look at all these things as things that are trending, and I start businesses.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I was one of the first to start knife throwing businesses.
Oh, wow.
Or axe throwing, sorry.
Axe throwing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then he was talking about escape rooms. He had a ton of escape rooms early
Cool.
on.
Wow. Yeah.
So he was just always thinking
beginning.
about trends and testing, and a lot didn't work.
Yeah.
But then, other things, like he killed it with Beanie Babies,
I bought bunches
20
of
years
these,
ago.
Yeah.
Like, so he's always been kind of in that mindset. Like, I'm sure he killed it with Ginsu knives. He was talking about fidget spinners. He killed it with that.
We got into this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you can make a lot of money, and that's an interesting business to think about with like trend type businesses where hey, this has got a cap. Like at some point, this is going to end. We're going to just go on full on blitz and sell as many as we can until nobody gives a crap about these things anymore.
So you remember, dude, I've done almost 40 different businesses. We could sit here and go through hours of stuff I've done. I've done all kinds of stuff you can imagine.
My hobby is buying domains.
Dude, I owned, at the time, Ryan, I owned 1,700 domains. Now today, I own about 300.
Yeah.
But I owned a lot. The biggest one I sold was Yahoo.com. One letter from Yahoo to Yahoo subsidiary for $10,000.
Yahoo.
Yahoo.com. One letter from Yahoo.com.
One letter from Yahoo?
Yeah, one letter off from Yahoo.
Oh, so is Yadoo?
Yep.
Yahoo. Interesting. And you just bought that because people are going to mistype it?
Yeah, mistype.
So the $10,000 was the most you made?
The most I made on a domain.
So
I bought it for like $17 or $15.
Yeah. I've never flipped any of my domains, but I just like buying them. I'm more of a collector of domains.
I collect a bunch now, but I've sold quite a few.
What's the best way to sell them? Just put them up for sale on GoDaddy or what?
There's domain brokers.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's cdo.com then. There's net, I think is what it was. Not net something.
What's the most you ever paid for a domain?
I never paid probably more than like $100.
Okay. I've been on the receiving end of these guys flipping. I bought wealthyway.com for $8,000. I bought wealthyuniversity.com for 10-ish.
I can tell that's
wealthyinvestor.com for 10.
That's a long domain, but that's pretty good. I mean, to be able to keep your branding.
Yeah. I bought back in the day before I started doing social media, I bought ryanpineda.com for $900.
That's good.
Yeah.
I own. You definitely own. You should own your name.
If you can.
Yeah, I own my name. I own, and like the .net, all the other ones now. You know, I mostly stay focused at that time on .coms.
My most recent one was leadkitchen.com.
Oh, yeah,
and I bought that for, what do you think I paid for that?
I can't imagine that being very expensive because it's just not a common lead kitchen. So I would think like probably less than $1,500.
No, I paid like $3.
Okay, close.
Yeah. These domains, like every time
it's low, it's because it's short domain. That's probably why.
I like 2-word domains.
Yeah.
Because I thought about trying to make like fake words, you know? Every time I think about it, I'm like,
like Google, dumb. Like that's a fake word.
Yeah, like it sounds cool for tech companies, but I'm like, I want mine to like, you could figure out what we do.
When you hear it, you want to know what it is.
Yeah. You're like, lead kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay, these guys are cooking up leads.
Yeah. I own babygifts.com. I've had offers.
Babygifts.com. That's got to be worth a lot.
It's worth a good amount.
What do you think it's worth?
I don't know today. I mean, it's a short domain now, so I don't know. I need to get back into that
10?
game. It's been a while.
Probably 10?
At least 10.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, at least 10, I think.
I would, you know what? Anyone in the comments, if you know a domain broker, I want to have them on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I am so curious about that world. Because you can make passive income with domains too.
Yeah.
Just hosting.
I sold at the time. I would go buy a bunch of domains and sell them for 99 cents.
Yeah.
And some of them I would kill it on. Some of them they would get because they would be bid up on eBay.
Yeah.
I mean, dude,
you were selling domains on eBay?
Yes.
I did not know they did that.
Sure. Yep.
eBay sells anything.
Anything, man. I found my plasma TV business idea off eBay. Through businesses for sale and eBay. You know, businesses for sale.
eBay sells businesses?
Businesses for sale is one of the most popular and automotives for sale, believe it or not.
Well, I knew eBay had eBay Motors.
Yeah.
Like, that was a huge thing.
Those are, but like those are two of the major places where traffic goes on eBay. At least it was then.
So
just
anyways,
in technology
you do a bunch of businesses.
Dude,
Most
I went through a
fail,
ton of businesses, and I got
one
involved.
hits with plasma.
One hits with plasma. I sold it, and I'm excited. Now I got some money. I got to pay taxes on it, so I've got some money that I got to go buy. Why did I get involved with real estate? Because in my plasma TV business, whenever I would go talk to people, my way of selling, like way of getting people to buy, was asking them how they became so successful.
Right.
That's all it was. Like people call me on eBay at 2 a.m. By the way, by then, I was customer service. I did not have at the beginning, I was customer service. And then I would eventually build a little small shoestrings team. But in the beginning, I was customer service. So I get a call at 2 a.m. and somebody's asking me about plasma TV, which I had no idea. I had to actually go and just Google the question and try to tell them hold on 1 second. That's a great question. I Google it, and I come back, oh, the ratio is this. But I would ask them whenever they agreed to buy it, what allowed them to become successful? And what do you think 95% of them said?
What?
Real estate.
And
I knew that's where I wanted to go because all these people were saying real estate.
They own a plasma TV, dude. They've got it made.
They had to have made it because they own the plasma TV. No, that's serious. That really stood out to me. But you want to know what was weird? Even though I did all these different business stuff like that, I even back then I thought I had to go to college.
Yeah.
I had to have this degree and certain certificate to sell real estate.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this whole world of wholesaling and bird dogging and all this stuff existed.
Let me actually ask you about this. So, you said you started about 40 businesses. I've started lots of businesses in my career.
Yeah.
The reality is most don't work out.
Most of them didn't.
So what kept you going? And I'll tell you what kept me going, because a lot of people listening to this have maybe tried and failed. And maybe they didn't try for very long, like you said. They gave it a week or two. Or they gave it a couple of months.
Sure.
Or even they gave it a year.
Right.
And it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with failure and just keeping going?
There's a book everyone probably have read. If they haven't, they should. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Kiyosaki. And there's a what he said in that book was 9 out of 10 businesses fail.
Yeah.
And I remember getting excited.
You're like, I need to start at least 10.
I need to start 10 businesses and one of them's going to succeed.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the way that you perceive failure, perceive not winning. You've got to look at every no is closer to a yes. 9 out of 10 businesses fail. That means that 10th one's going to succeed. Persistence will win over talent almost every single time. You can take somebody that is extremely, people don't realize Babe Ruth had the most home runs, but also the most strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, they only talk about, they see somebody in you know, the lights and all that, the success, right? They don't ever think about like the iceberg, right? They don't see all this down the what it takes, right?
Yeah.
And all that what it takes is all the no's, all that you're crazy, it's not going to work, you're dumb, you should stop this. And, you know, all this, you got to go through, do you have conviction, right, that this is going to work? And for some people, the way that they do that is they burn the ships, they burn the sails, right? They just, there's no coming back. I either make this succeed or I die, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can go to that one, that extreme. But I think the other side of it is just, you got to have commitment that like, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it my incredible amount of best effort. I know, and I'm anticipating that I'm going to get rejected. And that's okay, because every rejection is going to teach me a lesson of what I didn't know, right? Every rejection is a lesson for how I can become better. Out of all of the quote bad, it's all our perception. People can go through the same situation. Two people go through a similar situation. One can say, wow, I learned a lot from that. The other one say, that was the worst experience I've ever had. You know, I don't know why anybody would go through that. What's the difference? Is their attitude and is their perception. So I think the answer to your question is, what are you feeding yourself? If you're a person that's always pessimistic and you're always, and I use these words always or absolutes, I don't mean to, but if you find yourself looking at the bad in things, you can't find the good in it. You're not seeing, you know, the potential for success, potential for win. Ask yourself, what are you feeding yourself? Are you listening to a bunch of garbage everyday news that's just constantly negative? People don't realize that, man, news is not news anymore. It's just entertainment.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to find a bad story. And if they find that bad story, they know they're going to get more attention.
Yeah.
Versus a good story, you know? Like the train wreck always gets more people to stop and look than the guy that's like helped the woman on the street.
Yeah.
Like the negative wins in entertainment in terms of marketing and what they call shock marketing, right? And so what you've got to understand is that's just a part of the game. You got to understand you're playing a game where you know that, you know, there's a lot of negative stuff out there that wants to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But if you understand, like, that's just a part of the game. It's part of the marketing. They're trying to get attention, trying to get eyeballs. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It doesn't mean it's not going to work for you, right? I just think that you will find somebody that if they have a negative attitude and they just are, you know, they can't get anywhere, quote, in life, it isn't because the thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's because there's something broken in them and they're feeding themselves something, and they need to ask themselves, what do I need to feed myself and replace on a daily basis that can make me think positive, make me have more success, make me, you know, in the Bible, it says, keep your mind on things worthy to be praised, right? Like, what's that mean? That doesn't mean the news.
Yeah.
You know, that's like constantly telling you that everyone's dying, everyone's getting shot, there's wars happening everywhere. You can't go to the supermarket without getting shot. You can't go to school. You can't go to church without getting shot.
Yeah.
Like, if you believe that, right, you're going to stay in your home, be a hermit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it all goes back to what you feed yourself and who you surround yourself with. And like you said, what you consume.
You're a big proponent on that, man. I see, you know, you talk about stuff like that. You know, it's like what you have coming in.
Yeah. Yep. I had a recent video, I'll link to it down below, where I just talked about one of my rules for making money. And one of the rules was control what you consume. And it's just so true, right? Like, if you have just negative, same thing you just said, you have all this negativity coming in, you will be negative. You hang out with people who do drugs, you will be doing drugs at one point.
100%.
You know, you hang around with people who are getting divorced and everything else. Guess what? You're probably going to get divorced too. So you better start controlling what you consume. You surround yourself with great entrepreneurs. My guess is you're going to figure business out. You're going to figure out how to have success and, everything else. And so,
yeah, man.
For me, when I look at failure, people have asked me this, like, how do you keep going? And what makes you so optimistic that it's going to work out and everything else? And it's like, the reality is most have not worked out, but the few that have hit really big.
It just takes one.
Yeah. I'm lucky to have a few. Right. I don't need, but if you just have one thing that hits, you're killing it.
You're killing it.
You're set. And people just don't think like that. They're like, oh, well, the one thing I tried, it didn't work out. It's like a new real estate investor. Dude, I made a couple of offers last week and I didn't get a deal. I was like, well, yeah, dude, try making 100 offers. You might get one.
Right. Yeah.
It's like that. It's just the law of numbers. That's what it takes to be successful.
Yeah.
You better try a lot. And you just, like you said, it comes down to you just can't give up.
Can't give up.
You only lose if you give up.
Persistence is an absolute recipe for success. And especially in real estate, but just in general, if you try to make a cake without sugar, right? That's persistence, in my opinion. If you're going to be an entrepreneur and you are easily you give up easily, stop. Just don't do it, because you're going to be so upset, right? Because there's just too many people that lean to a no than they do a yes. A yes takes a lot of, it just takes a lot these days to have someone basically say yes to your offer, and you got to be willing to go through those no's to get to that person that's going to be like, yeah, I want to sell my house.
Yeah. And I think too, a word I like to use for, in conjunction with persistence is faith, right? Because what makes somebody be persistent?
Yeah.
Well, they got to have some deeper conviction.
Right.
What is conviction? Conviction is essentially like hope that this is going to work out.
Right.
That is essentially what faith is. That, hey, something better is coming.
Right.
And, for me, no matter what, my life verse, I don't know if I've said this on air, is Galatians 6:9. So let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up.
I like that.
If we do not give up.
If we do not give up.
There is no harvest if you give up.
If you give up, right.
Right? And you will grow weary. That's why it's saying do not grow weary.
Right.
Because it's going to happen.
Right.
And so what do I do when I get tired? When I'm getting punched in the face over and over again, the market sucks, this business failed, this deal went south, this person said this about me, this person quit, this guy came in and is a new competitor.
Right.
What am I going to do when all of these things happen? Because they are going to happen.
Right.
Do you give up? Because you
lose the harvest if you do. Yeah.
You will not have a harvest.
Right.
And so the key is you're going to get tired. Don't let that stop you. Keep going and don't give up. If you don't give up, you will figure it out.
Yeah.
I've yet to find somebody who has not given up and who has failed. They're constantly working on the next idea, the next thing. They're still going. They're still figuring it out. It just is what it is. That's the only way to deal with failure.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. People just give up too easy, and I don't think they have, that life verse is awesome. I'm a Christian. I know you're a Christian. God, anything good that's happened in my life, I literally think the Lord has everything to do. I should not be here. I shouldn't have any of the opportunities I've had in my life. I think I should have been dead. I grew up in a small town, Ryan, where all we did is got in trouble. We got into bad relationships, got into fights. My friends, that I thought were my friends, most of them went to boys' home. One of them went to prison. But it's just crazy, man. And I had to break out of that. It wasn't that there's not good. There's good people there, but for me, I realized I was hanging out with people that didn't have any concept of core values. Yeah. And it was all living for the moment. And you will find this: the people that aren't typically successful long term, they might have a little success for a little bit, but it'll be like they just do stupid stuff after it. But long term success, you'll find that is because those people have core values.
Yeah.
you know?
With everything you learned, you failed everything else. You finally had success. You sold your business, and then you got into real estate.
Yeah.
And so you were listening to Carlton Sheets and all these guys and learning the game. And like, what was your first successful stint in real estate? How long ago was this?
A long time ago. I mean, this was probably, I think I sold my company in 2005 or 6, something like that. And I started to like get on good old eBay again and like research
buying houses
how
on
to
eBay
buy
now?
houses how to buy houses on eBay, like courses. And I went through and I bought every course you can imagine for like 20, 30, 40 bucks. I bought like, I'm not kidding. I think one time,
Bro, you should get eBay tattooed on you.
dude, I'm telling you, eBay sent me all kinds of cool stuff. I still got a bunch of stuff from eBay, but we're a power seller. But at the end of the day, the thing I went to eBay back again, right, is I was like, how to buy real estate, how to buy houses, how to flip houses. And Carlton Sheets and Ron LeGrand was on there. And I bought his, if you guys remember, his course was like that big. It was like red, blue, and he had like different colors for it. I went through his whole course and I wrote notes and everything in there. And I resold my course for more money with the notes. I made the notes be the value add. And so I joke
with
around.
Commentary by Cory Boatright.
I joke around, but I'm not, I joke around, but I almost got a education quote for free because I would go through the course. I would listen to CDs in my car. I made a commitment that I'm not going to listen to any music, which is a whole other story I hadn't talked about, but I was in a Christian heavy metal band for a while. We really had some awesome success for different things. And I'm a guitar player and I love, listening to music. I'm a musician.
You're like Pastor Maddie from Wealthy Kingdom,
Dude,
our nonprofit.
I love music. And I told myself I'm going to basically fast for music for one whole year while I'm in my car.
Wow.
And listen to nothing but audio for real estate, self-development. And so I just listened to these CDs and go through them, taking notes on the course, and then put it back on eBay and resell it with my notes, and usually sold it for more money than I paid for it. And then I'd take that money and buy another course. And even to this day, my wife is like trying to figure out in our garage, we have, it's stacks, right? It's like these big, huge, like containers full of old courses with some of them had VHS tapes. CDs, VHS, DVDs, and I got these huge containers and they're stacked almost to the ceiling. Just stacked, dude. I'm trying to figure out if I want to sell these things or like what she wants me to get, like, what do I need to do with them? But I'm telling you, that's how I basically started my real estate education is by going through all the courses on eBay. And then finally I got enough confidence where I was like, okay, I think I know how I need to start this. I need to go be a bird dog. And a bird dog obviously is where you find a deal, old like house that looks dilapidated, high grass, broken windows, all that stuff. And then take down the address and then give it to a guy that's going to basically buy that house. So that's how I started my real estate business is I found a guy that was buying houses and he told me that he was going to pay me like $10 for every one of those addresses. And he paid me like, I think it was at the time like $500 if he actually ended up buying the house. So that's how I started as a bird dog.
Okay.
So then from there, I learned like, okay, the bird dog was actually selling he wasn't buying the house, he was wholesaling the house.
Yeah.
And he was wholesaling the house to a fix and flipper. So I was like, how do I become a wholesaler? So then I was like, oh, wow, he doesn't even have to have any money to really buy the house. It was like in Oklahoma, it was a dry season state, basically, where it means you don't have to bring the money to closing. You could use the guy that you sold the property to fund the first transaction.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I don't even need the money to be able to do this. I can just become a wholesaler. So then I started making like a couple $1,000s. Back then, I think it was like $1,500 or $3,000. I think like $5,000 was like a lot of money back then. Mm-hmm. And then I realized like, okay, the wholesaler was selling to a fix and flipper.
Yeah.
I was like, I got to start a fix and flip business. So I started a fix and flip business. And I ran that for like a couple of years. And that story's crazy, but just understand that fix and flip business is really difficult. There's a lot of moving parts. And, I got out of that business because it's stressful. And I didn't really have a big desire to continue
Well, tell me, go more into that, right? I mean, you started out as a bird dog, wholesale.
So bird dog to a wholesaler to a fix and flipper. Fix and flipper, I started fixing and flipping houses. And I went there. There was a contractor that was fixing up a house, and he had a bunch of subs. GC had a bunch of subs, and I was actually out of town, and I came back early, and I went to go check on the house. And when I got to the house, this GC was in the house, like upstairs, I think, or something, and his subs were in the back porch drinking mouthwash, and they're getting drunk on mouthwash.
Like literal mouthwash?
Mouthwash.
How do you can get drunk on mouthwash?
They're a bunch of Indian guys. They're Indian guys, Native Americans that were drinking mouthwash. And actually, it's got like almost like 90% proof alcohol, but it just tears your esophagus up and you can get drunk on it. It's the cheapest way to get drunk.
I did not know that. Okay.
It is insane, right?
Okay.
So I got pretty frustrated because there's power tools, and I felt like if somebody gets hurt, I'm going to get sued, and I'm going to have like all this issues. So I got really upset. I found the GC. He and I got into an altercation physically.
Okay.
And then he pulled a gun and put it to my head.
Whoa.
Yeah. Pulled a gun and put it to my head. And I realized at that moment that this wasn't worth it.
Wow.
And shortly after, I was done with the fix and flip business. I didn't have a desire to continue with it anymore. I realized that I wasn't being able to check on all the jobs, and that anytime something happened like that, let's say someone got shot with a nail gun, I was the guy that you're going to sue, So I shut it down. I shut down my fix and flip business. I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Go into wholesaling more or whatever? And then lo and behold, I was sending out like these flyers and I was actually putting flyers up at Walmart, and I was sending out like direct mail postcards. Like I buy houses. And this little old lady called me. I think this is like 2008, probably 2007, 2008. This little old lady calls me, and she was like, "Hi, I got your postcard in the mail. I want you to see if you're interested in buying my house." And I was like, "Oh yeah, tell me about the house." She told me about it. It was like, "Oh, what do you think the house is worth?" She's like, "Oh, like 170, 180. Oh, okay. Like, what do you owe on it?" It's like 190. I'm like, I appreciate you calling. I'm an investor, and so I really look for houses that have some equity in it, because I'm not going to live in the house. And so I'm trying to explain it to her. She's like, "Oh no, honey." She was really sweet. She was like, "Honey, the bank said I need to get an offer." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Can you come out?" She was really persistent. "Can you come out and just look at my house?" And I'm like, "But man," I felt like it was like a waste of time.
Yeah.
Like wasting her time, not just like most of my time, like waste of her time. I was like, "Ma'am, I mean, there's no equity. You owe more than what it's worth. Like, how am I going to tell someone buy it for 110% or whatever?" She was like, no, the bank just said, and I didn't even believe her. Like, okay, finally, I'll just come out.
You had never heard of a short sell.
Oh, I never even heard of short sales. And so I like, obviously that's where we're going. I go out there, I look at the house. It's a great, actually, house. Needs a little bit of work, but not like much. I think the roof was definitely needed a roof, but it was like not bad. And so I was like, I may offer like $90,000.
Yeah.
It's like $90,000. She was like, "Okay." It's like, I told you, like, hope you can bring $100,000 to the table. She's like, no. I'm, she was like behind on payments and stuff, and just a sweet lady. So the next day I get a call, and it's a lady again. I didn't expect to ever hear from her again. Like, she was sweet, but like, I didn't expect to hear from her. And she's like, "Hey, I got the bank on the other end of the line, and they want to talk to you." And I was like,
"It's the fastest short sale ever."
What the heck? Well, I mean, you remember back then, like it was like
months,
dude. It was like, so I thought, "Oh, sure, go ahead, punch the bank through." And the lady comes on, I'll never forget it. She goes, "Can I speak with Cory in loss mitigation?" For some reason, she thought I was in loss mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, I sat there for a second, and like all of a sudden the gears started turning in my head. And then like the clouds opened up and the sun shined down on me. And I literally said, this is Cory and loss mitigation. Not even having loss mitigation, not even in, and I remember thinking on the phone,
Cory from Plasma TVs.
like, this is Cory from Plasma TVs.
I work at eBay.
Do you want a Ginsu knife?
Yeah. But yeah, I do loss mitigation as well.
Oh my gosh, dude. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So the lady was like, and back then, you know, they actually would tell you actually how much money that they were willing to accept. Some of them would.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is Cory loss mitigation. And so we started like having a conversation, and she was like, yeah, I got your offer. It's, you know, it's a little, it's low. And I was like, well, shocker. And she was like, but I think if you can get to like 95, we can do it. And dude, I remember like shaking for a second. Like I was like, did I can get this for 95? Like I was shaking, and I was like, and I said, well, let me think about that for a second, you know, knowing like I'm immediately need to say yes. And just having all these things processed in my head. Cory and loss mitigation. Oh my God, she's taking 50% of what the value is. Oh my God, if I sell this house, like I could call somebody right now and make 20 grand on this house. Like all this stuff started going through my head. And I ended up obviously accepting the deal. We sold that house. I made more money on that house, which I think it was like $30-something thousand on a house that had no equity.
Yep.
Than all my other transactions before on a single transaction.
Yeah.
And dude, it just changed the game. I thought if there's one, there's got to be more.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that timing was perfect.
Yep. Everybody went under.
Everybody was going under. Everybody had owed more than what the houses were worth.
Yep.
So I started to double down. I stopped doing everything. I just doubled down and learned short sales and got really good at it. I mean, you know, at one point we had a pretty, you know, I started doing more of them. I started answering this thing called Easy HUD. Guy named Chris Daigle. I don't know if you remember. Easy HUD was like this forum online where everybody was kind of talking about real estate stuff, and short sales was kind of coming up. And I was the guy that was answering all the questions.
This is like pre-Bigger Pockets.
This is pre-Bigger Pockets for sure. Like, yeah. And the guy that owned that forum called me. His name's Chris Daigle. And he's like, dude, you know, you've answered over 1,000 posts. And it was like, do you want to do a webinar? And like at the time, I never even knew what a webinar was. And anyway, so I started doing a lot of short sales, and I started to rent out little Denny's to get people come in, and I'd just teach them for free. Yeah, Denny's, dude.
You were
it was like
meetups at Denny's?
I was little Denny meeting for like 10 people. And then it got to like Shoney's, which was like a bigger like room where I do like 20 people. And then I got like another little like
when did you make it to Golden Corral?
No, I actually I think I did one at Golden Corral. I think I did. And it was like it was a great deal too, because the manager gave us a discount, I think, on like because the Golden Corral is like $20 all you could eat. Like I've ever something like that. And then I started like having another event. I think the biggest event I had was like 100 people, which was big. And I started charging people.
Rented out the whole Golden Corral.
When I started charging people then, like at the time, I wasn't charging people. I was just basically, hey, if you get a deal, let's split the deal. So that was the beginning. And then I told you about that forum thing. And then the owner of that called me and was like, hey, let's make a webinar. And dude, at that time, nobody was doing webinars. Nobody.
Yeah.
And not even people knew what a webinar was. It was like, actually, at that time, real estate and internet were just getting started.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't a thing before, like in pre-2008 and 7, there wasn't really an internet and real estate thing going on there. It was just getting started. And he's like, hey, have you ever thought about making a course? I was like, a course? You mean like guys I bought on eBay? Like, you want me to be that guy? And then I did not want to do it. I reluctantly made a course, but I created this course called Short Sale Fundamentals. And I guess the rest is history. We sold over 2,500 of those courses.
At how much?
At the time, it was $1,500 a pop.
Wow.
And then eventually I created a software that got up to almost 5,000 users paying $99 a month. That was a big business.
Yeah.
That was called Short Sale Builder. We gave away a bunch of licenses on that too, but we still had a lot of money coming in on that. Then I started a loss mitigation company. I actually started one where I would work with clients and then get the deal approved. We hired a senior loss mitigator from a big bank. They worked on me for salary, and then we'd get the deal approved, and then we'd get a percentage of that deal. So we started doing like partnership deals. I think the heyday in my like in 2010, maybe 11, we had like 50 short sales any given month, always going. So we had a pretty big business.
Mm-hmm.
The software company had about 30 employees, so that was growing. We had a pretty good size overhead on that. It was like 70 grand at that time, I think, for 30 employees.
Mm-hmm.
70, 80 grand. Yeah, something like that. And then the employees wanted to have more money. It was just, there's a whole story of that. But anyway, I ended up doing a very big business in short sales. Sold millions and millions and millions of dollars in short sales. Did lots of short sales. And then, of course, short sales started to come to a screaming halt whenever they put regulation in. The government came in and did more regulation on them and basically said that you can't list them on the MLS anymore. If you haven't bought them, you had certain paperwork that you were agreeing to at closing that basically was incriminating you, like from you making any kind of money. I had a big business divorce with my guy on one of my businesses for the short sales, and that was painful. I highly, I don't recommend anybody going to a partnership with anyone unless you definitely talk with an attorney that says, what does it look like if we don't like each other anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to skip the topics here, but people will surprise you whenever more money comes into play.
Yep.
It's one thing when you're making 30 grand a month. It's another thing you're making 300 grand a month.
Yep.
And it's just a different dynamic, and people change. And it's not they're bad people. At the time, you think they might be bad people. It's just because they don't know how to handle the dynamic of that.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, if someone's a bad person, the more magnification that they get from money, they'll be a worse person.
Yeah.
If they're a good person, the more magnification they'll get is, good things.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful on who be wise on who you partner with, because money changes people. Yep. Unfortunately.
Well, I think, like you said, I don't think it even changes people. It just magnifies what was there. When they're not making money, you don't realize the kind of person they are.
Right.
And then when they get money, it's not like money changed them.
Right.
It just unleashed what was there.
Right.
And I think that, like you said, there are people who are generous and good people. And it's like they get more money and you're like, holy crap, this person is so generous. It's like they were always that way.
Yeah.
They just happen to have more now.
Yeah. Have you had some of that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
100%.
And it disappoints you. And it's not like you're not perfect. Like I've been greedy before. I'm not saying I'm not greedy, but it makes a difference. Like when someone like changes, something happens, like a dynamic completely changes where, just because you have more money coming in.
What I would say is to anyone listening, I've had businesses I've sold like you. I've had businesses I've shut down. I've had businesses with partnership breakups. I've had solo businesses, so like I've been in business every way you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I've been in business as an advisor to businesses. And, one thing is, I think your lawyer's right. A lot of people go into business like being equals.
Right.
And they're like, well, we'll go 50-50. And it's like, you can't break a 50-50 tie.
Right.
And somebody does need to go into that agreement with authority.
Right.
Even if you're going to split profits 50-50, somebody has to be the one in charge.
Right.
And I highly doubt I will ever have a business partnership again where I don't have control.
Yeah.
At least if I am at the forefront of the face of running it, marketing for it, all those things.
Right.
Now, if no one even knows I'm in the business.
Right. Silent partner.
Yeah. Right. Like, okay, that's a different story.
Yeah. And that's responsibilities and really ironing that out, right? In the beginning, a lot of times you're like, hey, let's start a business.
Yeah.
You do this or this, let's make money. This sounds perfect. We're going to be, whatever. And then you're like, oh, this isn't working.
Well, the problem is when you're actually successful and more successful than you thought you were going to be.
Yes.
That's when the problem happens.
Yes. 100%.
Because it doesn't happen if you guys aren't having success. You both are like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's just.
This ain't working.
Yeah, it's not working. Right? Yeah.
The problem happens when the success is great and now, those things are now just unleashed.
Yeah, exactly. So we did a poor job of that. I was basically driving sales, making all the sales come in, making the phone ring. The other guy was back on doing the tech and running the back end. And it just, we had a falling out. I also had a personal divorce happen around the same time. So I was married for almost 4 years. Young guy, traveling around. That's the other thing for people that, when you get success and you think it's exciting, you want to have like limelight and, all the stuff that comes with like, who I am and all your name and lights, all this other stuff. Just remember, like, what is it? There's a cost to that.
Yeah.
People don't think, actually, believe it or not, Adele, I was reading something like 2 days ago, like Adele, right? The singer.
Yeah.
She literally is going to stop music. And she has like a thing here in Vegas.
Yeah. She had a residency.
She's just like stopping because she's like, I didn't realize the cost of being famous. And I'm not saying like, Cory is famous. I mean, I was on stages, all this other stuff, and like, name was definitely getting out there. And, when you're traveling, you're like, it's an opportunity to go, sell stuff, make money, feed the family, create legacy, create all the stuff that like, eventually I'll just work hard so I don't have to work, anymore, later on in life, right? I'll work hard now. So later on, I don't have to work as hard. The challenge when you're newly married, right, is especially if you haven't read the book, The 5 Love Languages, which I didn't. I read after.
Great book, by the way, guys.
Yeah,
Read it.
it's a fantastic book. What you do is you start being like, you think this is good, so you're going to go do it. Like, I just think I need to go make money. You sit here, and just wait for me to get home. So like if you travel two times a week, so your day that you travel is probably going to be there the night before. Then you speak. Then you get back on the plane. So it's a 3-day thing minimum usually.
Yeah.
And if you do that twice a week, for an extended period of time or 3 times a month, like you're only dedicating like 4 or 5 days to your wife that you're newly married to.
Yeah. That's a recipe for not working.
It's a recipe for divorce.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was my case. I just let success and drive take over. She definitely had her part to play, right? But I know by going through counseling, all this other stuff, I did too. And my part to play was I was being selfish to what I didn't even realize what she needed in the marriage. You
just weren't leading properly.
I wasn't leading, dude. I was leading. I wasn't leading properly is a good way to say it. I was leading. I just wasn't leading in the way that, mattered to her.
Right.
So whenever you are single, all the people that are single right now, you don't have to think about anybody else. It sounds obvious.
Yeah.
But no, you don't. Like your bank account, that's yours. Your real estate, that's yours. Your time, that's yours. You don't have to think. If you want to just get up and go, that's you. Yeah. Whenever you're married, you have to understand, like, it's no longer you. If you aren't feeling good, that affects your wife.
Yeah.
If you want to go travel, that affects your wife. If you want to sleep, that affects your wife.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, like, it's not just about like dode love. People think about love and like, there's 8 different types of love. People don't realize that. But the only one we talk about is just like this affection, romance, love. But there's like all these other types of love. And think about love like little fires. Like a match would be one type of love. Like lighting a piece of paper on fire would be another type of love. Like lighting a log on fire would be another type of love. Like a fireplace would be another type. Like a bonfire would be another type of love. And if you have like all these different types of love, agape being like a love for the Lord, like you have a lot of like, fulfillment and all these other things. But most of the time, especially in the West, we think about like romantic love and this one type of love. And that's not gonna sustain the marriage.
No.
If you're just thinking about one or those 2 types of things. So I'm just encouraging anybody that, especially if you're newly married or you're just married in general, and you want to go out there and succeed, and you want to go do something, you want to go travel, you want to go get on stages, you want to go be an entrepreneur and do those other things, and you're married, ask her or him or whoever it is that like, what is it? How is this going to affect you? And what's it going to cost? Because, if you are willing to make money and lose your marriage, which I was, not directly, but indirectly, you're really at a place where it's like you have your priorities
It's
mixed
selfish
up.
is what it ends up becoming.
Yeah, man.
And so I've had a lot of the single alpha male guys on, and, I've had a lot of married guys on, guys who've been married a long time, guys who've had to go through a divorce. I've had like every realm of men on here.
Yeah.
And so one thing I want to make clear, because I've never like stated my full position on this, I always kind of like get on the alpha male guys because they kind of have that mindset of me. And, it's very selfish. But I want to like give my full position on this and where I'm coming from. So I've been married for almost 11 years now. 3 kids.
Awesome.
We were broke when we got married.
Yep.
Built it all together.
Flipping couches.
Not
plasma TVs or Ginsu.
That was where I learned my sales skills. Flipping couches. I didn't knock doors. I kind of knocked doors.
Kinda.
I delivered many
your
couches.
Storage.
Yeah.
Had to knock your door. Your storage.
So I kind of knocked doors too. But here's what I realize, and because I see it in the comments, because my team will take these clips of like the podcast where I'm talking about marriage and stuff, and then I'm always getting on the dudes. I'm like, guys, you got to serve your wife. You got to serve your wife. And they're like, Ryan's a simp, like this and that. I'm like, first off, you're single and broke for a reason, okay? So don't even comment, because ain't nobody going after you, okay? That's number one,
Yeah.
okay? Number 2, let's just say, whatever, right? You got some stuff going on and you're thinking about wanting a wife. And, a lot of times we like to look as Christians at Ephesians and we're like, hey, husbands, or wives, submit to your husbands, right? And then the second part of that is, hey, and husbands, love your wife, just like Christ loved the church. And so for me, I never talk about my wife and what she does or what her role is, because I don't need to. That's her place to talk about it. I talk about what I am supposed to do as the husband. And so I'm always talking about, hey, I want to serve my wife. I want to love my wife. I want to sacrifice for my wife, because that's all I can control.
Yeah.
And if I control that and I lead well, by nature, she's going to be led better.
Yeah.
And she is just going to naturally do these things too. And so, to be clear, my wife is submissive. She allows me to do all these things. My wife does love me. She does respect me. She does take care of the kids. I am the head of the household. I make all the decisions, but I don't need to sit here and say all those things to make my point, because none of that matters, right? I can't make her act a certain way. All I can do is control what God and the Bible tells me to do, which is to serve and love my wife. And if I do those things and I lead her at a high level, by nature, if she loves Jesus and we're both reading the same thing, coming to the same conclusions, she's going to submit. She's going to respect. She's going to support.
Right.
She's going to come alongside with me, and we're going to do a lot together. And that's what's happened.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of guys misinterpret, and they're like, well, she's supposed to submit. And I'm like, I didn't say she wasn't. They both are supposed to happen. The problem is these single alpha male dummies are saying they need to submit. They need to do this. And then they never look at the second half of what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And they're like, well, I'm supposed to make money and provide. I'm supposed to speak on the stages. I'm supposed to go build the big business.
Right.
And it's like, are you?
Yeah.
Like, where is that? I didn't see that part.
Yeah, that's nowhere in there. Right. And in Proverbs, it talks about being a sluggard and, not being lazy.
Yeah, I'm not saying anyone needs to be lazy
don't be
and
lazy.
not work.
Right. You're not saying that. I totally get it. I just, here's the thing. Whenever you are doing anything successful, you have success in your life, and especially if you have limelight, if you have, influence or power or whatever stuff, the magnifying glass is on you.
Yeah.
Okay. And what you do, those decisions that you make, if you are married, right, you've got to understand that it affects that other person.
100%.
And if you don't have a conversation and you don't have communication about it, then you are not being proactive. You're being reactionary. And more success, if you want more success in your life, practice being proactive.
Yeah.
Practice talking about things before they happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Scenarios.
hey,
I'm thinking about speaking a couple times a month.
Yeah.
What do we think about that?
What do you think about that? Like, is that going to take away our time here or that? Like, And maybe you don't even have the gigs to speak a couple, but you're having the conversation and you're basically being
This
proactive.
is what I want to do. What do you think? How would this work? How would this affect us?
I would have been so, I don't usually talk about like the past unless I want to take something from it and that I learned to bring it in the forward to the present to make it. That's the good thing to talk about the past.
So Mindy and I had this exact conversation about events and everything, because I get asked to speak at events freaking every week.
Yeah.
And I like literally never speak at other people's events.
Yeah.
You're
not a bad person. It's just you've had the conversation.
Yeah.
You've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
You have small kids too.
Yeah.
And then what's it going to cost?
Yeah. And her and I talked about it.
Yeah.
And like basically the conclusion we came to of like, hey, the balance of pursuing like good opportunities like we're talking about,
right,
but also being a good father and a good husband and everything else. The conclusion we came to was like, hey, like once a month is ideal.
Yeah.
You go leave for a day or 2 a month, it's cool. And even me personally, I don't even want to speak on the stages. Like, I just don't care. Because, and this is just when you build your own thing, but it's like, my stage is better.
This is a stage.
Yeah, I don't even need to. And I actually had Sean Bowles. He's a Christian, prophetic guy on Instagram and everything else. He has a YouTube channel. I've been on his show. But we met about over a year ago, and he spoke a word over me. And he was like, hey, you're going to have a situation where you're going to be able to do this different than everyone else. People are just going to come to you. You're not going to have to go out to people.
Cool.
They're going to come to Vegas for your events, for your shows, for everything. And you're going to be able to get even bigger impact.
Interesting.
And it was true. And he was like, just stay true to who you are and how you're building it. Do not deviate from that and follow what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what's happened.
It's awesome.
And I think this year, 2024, I've gone out less than once a month this year. Maybe I can count on 3 or 4 times this year I've traveled to go speak or do a podcast or, whatever the case was. And we're doing great.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing that Chick-fil-A and everyone else they're like, we're just not going to be open Sundays.
Yeah.
And I think we're still going to smoke the competition.
Right.
It's not even close.
By 3 times. Yeah. Right.
And so I think that when you're working in the world's understanding of things, the world will pretend how the world needs to be. But when you're working under supernatural provision and guidance and obedience, it's not even close.
Well, if you'll receive this, man, I think I can speak some over to you. I think you're probably going to be, God's grooming you to be a pastor, of something where you can bring people in from this online world, that allows them to dig deeper into the word. I remember Craig Groeschel, when he started, Life Church was 150 people. And I remember seeing the evolution of when we would go to other churches and look and see what they were doing, just kind of look around and see what was going on and how we're going to be different, at that time. I was there till they saw them grow to a mega church, over 7,000 people. And then I left and went to another church to help serve that church startup. It was called, that was a church with Pastor Israel Hogue. And so the evolution of that, I saw that grow from 150 to over 7,000. And now I think they're over 30,000 and multiple, churches all over. And I saw the whole simulcast thing, which Bobby was a big part of with the tech, anything with Life Church, the technology Bobby was part of. But basically I saw the first time with one church, multiple locations. They kind of started out with that. And then lifechurch.tv.
Yep.
That's the new stuff, man. I think that you're on the cutting edge of that innovation. God's using things in you that's different, that he's going to be able to connect with a younger audience too, not just, younger and older audiences. But just allowing them to basically introduction to the Bible in a different way than just regular churches. So, man, I hope you receive that.
Thank you. Yeah. I had Mark Driscoll tell me the same thing when I was with him a couple of months ago. And he was just like, dude, you're a pastor, right? That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, with Wealthy Kingdom, we got the nonprofit, and now we have 70 Bible studies across the country. So
those are kind of like life groups.
Yeah.
Whenever that started happening.
And we're about to do something called Kingdom Nights, where it's funny because I just said I'm not traveling. We're doing, I did my big Kingdom Summit here with 1,000 people for a Christian event. We had 100 people get saved. It was amazing.
Awesome, man.
But now we're going to do these mini events at local church. I'm actually going to do one in Oklahoma.
Cool. Very cool. Go check it out.
So I'm working out with all these pastors at their churches.
Very cool.
And the beauty is Mindy's coming with me on these events.
Yeah.
Because these are led by both of us.
Yeah.
And we're partnering with churches to bring these business and faith events together. They'll be free. And it's going to be crazy. But
that's a big vision that you have. I can see. And you're a visionary, man. So, I can visionaries recognize visionaries.
Yeah.
And, it'll be interesting to see what God does with you on that. It's cool that you're sensitive to it too. A lot of people, when they get an audience and they get attention, things like that, they also go like, what does it can do for me? It seems like you're really going like, I got this audience and attention, that I can direct more people to the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really cool. Even people that are like, have nothing to do with the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And it might be because what they understand of Christianity, the Lord, is so different than what it really is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when people, I've had a conversation today, like, oh, you're a Christian. Oh, I hate Christians. Really? Oh, you guys are, hypocritical. You are the worst of the worst. It's almost like they call it the preacher's kid. The preacher's kid's always the worst.
Yeah.
Because he's been, confined and all of a sudden. And I was like, that's really your view of Christianity. Like, I'm curious, like, where did you get that view? Well, growing up, I had a friend and he was a, Christian guy and he was the worst.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so your view of what something is oftentimes is not an actual representation of it. If I had another conversation with you and go like, let's say that guy had a son, let's just say, right? And his son got sick and he was in the hospital and you came and prayed and his son miraculously got healed.
Yeah.
That guy would be like, oh my gosh.
I'm all in.
Freaking, like Christianity is like, he's going to tell everybody about it.
Yeah.
So you have an experience that affects the way that you view something. And you have to be careful on if that experience that you had is factual of what that thing really is, or is it just your experience from it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people, it's like, if people have what we would call church hurt, a bad experience with a Christian or a church or anything else, it's like, well, it doesn't make the entire faith bad.
Yeah.
Because there's one person who, screwed it up for you, or even a few people, or whatever the case is. Like, people are still people.
People are still people.
And to relate it back to business, since a lot of people follow, here for business stuff, it's like, okay, you ever been screwed by a real estate investor? You ever been, around a deal or somebody did something? Does it make all real estate investors bad? No. It just is part of it. He's still a real estate investor and he screwed up, but doesn't make the entire thing negligible.
Man, that's a good transition to why we started Takedown Funding, because regulations out there, is trying to make, wholesalers basically wholesaling illegal. And we started that company, Takedown Funding, because we want to be able to help wholesalers that can take down deals that don't have the money.
Yeah.
And you got hard money lenders that will offer that, you got Kiavi, you got Anchor, you got all these other companies out there. They're great, but they still are going to have you jump through some hoops, maybe to it 10 or 20% down, right? There hasn't been anything that's really dedicated to giving 100% to the wholesaler, right? To fund the whole deal and then partner with them on the back end.
Yeah. And
so, one of the three reasons that we started Takedown Funding is regulations that are happening with wholesaling, making it harder to wholesale. In South Carolina, they passed a law that's illegal to wholesale.
Yeah.
And you have to be a licensed agent. You have to own the property. Like, how do you do these things if you're just a wholesaler and you're lock up a deal and you don't have the capital, or maybe you have some capital, but it's used up.
Yeah.
But you got a great deal and you're going to make money on it. And now you just can't close on it. We have people from South Carolina that were reaching out to us, like going, thank you. Like, we can't even close.
Yeah.
We had deals in the hopper. And all of a sudden the attorney says,
can't close.
Sorry, can't close. I think it was like as of May this year, like they put the nix down on it, and like, you can't wholesale in South Carolina anymore under the traditional way. Yeah.
We actually wholesaled one in South Carolina earlier this year before that went down. We made like $40K. It was great.
Oh yeah. The rips in South Carolina and North Carolina.
But we would have needed you now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just so for easy way for people to understand, takedown funding is, in my mind, what we would call transactional funding, where a lot of times you buy a deal just because you want to, you buy it and you list it on the MLS, you're going to make more money. We talked about that with Novations and everything else.
Yep.
But there are some deals that need to be closed right now. The seller will not allow you to wait 90, 120 days to go do a novation. And so...
Yeah, and you might need $30,000 of rehab. That's probably not going to be a novation deal.
Yeah. So you guys are coming in, giving buyers 100%.
Yep.
Or not buyer, but the wholesaler 100%.
Wholesaler 100%.
To be able to go buy it quick.
Yep.
And then they might do a little bit of work. They might do... Or just relist it, depending on the deal.
Yeah, we don't fund the rehab of it.
Yeah.
But we're just basically your wholesaling partner.
Yeah.
We're going to have you pay a flat fee of an admin fee. We're going to have an inspection. We're going to have a point on the deal, and then we're going to split it 80-20 on the back end. With
80% to the wholesaler.
80% to the wholesaler.
So one point, you're taking a 20% profit split.
Yep.
And then you guys will fund 100% of the purchase.
100% of the fit. Now, don't bring us a 90 cent on the deal. So, we target, just like all wholesalers, like if you can get a 40, 50, 60 cent on the dollar deal, like, you're probably going to lock it up, right? Like if you're a wholesaler and you probably wouldn't do the deal, then we're probably not going to either.
Yeah. I'm curious how you guys will function in higher income, more competitive places like Vegas, because there ain't no 60 cents on the dollar.
It's hard. Oregon, we just did a deal in Oregon. We got a deal signed up in Oregon, and those are pretty... That's a hard state too. Like,
I mean, in the Midwest, you absolutely see 50 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, San Diego,
you're not seeing this in San Diego
and in Vegas. Yeah, so we will still do those deals.
Yeah.
You might have to bring what we call option consideration to the table. So we'll just have to have a conversation with you. Everything's individually underwritten, so it's not like we're under government. It's like, hey, we're a small company. We have a desire to get to over 100 deals a month. We have a plan on how to do it. And, we want to help the wholesalers. And in Vegas, hard to get 60 cents on the dollar deals, but, they're not impossible. And also, maybe you get a 70 cent on the dollar deal and you have to bring a little bit of money to the table.
Yeah. What about, just talking about your entrepreneurial journey, it seems like you just keep ending up in the real estate service business.
Yeah, man. It is.
You're doing takedown. What's the website again?
Takedownfunding.com.
You got takedownfunding.com. We'll link to it down below.
Isn't it a great domain?
I think, how much did you pay?
I paid $20 for that domain.
3-word domain,
It's 3 words, but it absolutely is a slang word, but it's cool. Too.
Yeah. So you got that now. You guys are doing your nationwide wholesaling thing. You're married now too.
I am.
Right?
We just celebrated our 6th year anniversary.
You guys are here right now for a little vacation.
Yep.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from, the first marriage that we were talking about earlier to like how you went into the second one?
Read 5 love languages. Figure out. Yeah, just have the conversation that, hey, we're not always going to feel like we love each other. And that's okay. There's some days I don't feel like I love you. But it's not about love. It's about covenant. And that's the biggest difference, man. I wish I would have had just a better understanding of like, we're not going to have conversations with the D word in it. Right. We're not going to get mad. It's just like filters. Like, on anything else in business, we always come up with these filters and the way we find direct mail leads and all, it's like, 50% equity or whatever, like all these different filters. You need to have some filters in your marriage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're not going to go to swinging clubs. Probably not good for the marriage. We're not going to, you need to have some conversations that around your core values. The other thing is, find somebody your core values match with.
Yeah.
Core values matter a lot. Like one of my companies, our core values is CHILLS. It's a little acronym. It's customer service, honesty, integrity, loyalty, and servant leadership. Not only do we want all of our team to buy into that and to have that be a part of their lives, but anybody we work with. So we have a contractor that's cheap, but we know he's not loyal. He doesn't have any integrity. Like, we don't want to use him. And so you want to have some core values in your marriage and some filters, if you will, just some things that, that are important. That just kind of allow you to like not have those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I think it's great. I mean, I can tell you filters or just boundaries or understandings. I've talked a lot about my marriage over, the years, and it's like, yeah, I mean, we have established like in whatever you're going to call any of those things. It's like, hey, I'm not going to work on the weekends. Like, we've established that. Yeah. And we've done just fine.
Dude, your discipline, I've seen like your discipline's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
It's one of probably the biggest things that it's like the top 3 things that probably, like discipline is a big one for you. I know that you're always going to the gym. You're always where you say you're going to be, these things matter to you.
Yeah.
And that is a key that I think a lot of people that get involved with a business, they forget. Like, discipline isn't something that confines you. Like, I used to think structure and discipline would confine me. Like you get involved with a real estate business or you start your own business, Ryan, because you don't have to get up in the morning if you don't want to. You can go on vacation if you want to. You don't have to answer to anybody, right? That is absolutely a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie from the pit of hell. Structure and discipline will set you free.
Yeah, 100%. And 100%. And another word I'd add to that now I'm thinking about is standards.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at is like, my standard for myself is so high. My standard for my wife is also very high. Yeah. And her standard for herself is high, and our marriage and how we raise our kids. Yeah, man. And that's dictated on everything that we do, how we speak to each other, how we speak to our kids, the things we do as a family. It's everything. And this is where I think a lot of marriages struggle is because they have very ambiguous standards of like, I'm thinking one thing, you're thinking something completely different for what, our standard is on this marriage. Yeah. And that could be as simple as how we spend money. It could be as simple as how often we have sex. It could be simple as who we hang out with. Like, all those things matter a lot. Yeah. And yet, is it a standard, or do I think one thing and you think a different? If there is not clear communication, we're in trouble.
Right. Because one person is going to feel selfish if you don't have that communication. It's like, oh, you want that.
Yeah.
Right. But we haven't had that conversation, like what's important. Yeah. And why it's important, like, yeah. So I think your discipline level is really impressive, man. And how old are you?
35.
Dude, it's impressive, man. I mean, I wish at 35 I had the level of discipline that you do. It's pretty impressive.
Thank you. I think it just comes from sports. I mean, there's no other way to play sports and not be disciplined. Like, it just is what it is. Yeah. And then you do that your whole life, and everything else just is like, well, why wouldn't you do that in business and marriage and other things? But it doesn't even translate to all athletes. Most athletes, they get out of shape. They, have marriage problems. They can't spend their money properly. Like, everything, to your point, you can kind of just tell how a person is going to carry themselves based on their discipline levels and all that.
Yeah, man. It's Medley, our good friend, my best friend, he from running CG, he says, what does he say? He says, like talent, it's like anybody has talent, they can make money, but discipline, you have to keep it.
That makes sense.
Like, anybody can go make money, but it takes discipline to keep it.
That makes sense.
And he says a lot of stuff that makes sense. And that one, resonates because, you constantly think as an entrepreneur, I can do whatever I want. And that's a lie, man. You can't. Yeah. Unless you have somebody else there. Yeah. To do it while you're on vacation. Yeah. Like, you can't just do whatever you want, or you can, and you suffer the consequence for a ball dropping, Yeah. The day that I started to put discipline in for a structure for my business, everything changed. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just me doing everything, Yeah. And when you start setting that structure up, now you have a way that you can scale a little bit. You can breathe a little bit, you want to take a vacation, you come back and work still gets done.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, even that takes discipline to go on a vacation.
It does.
Right. And in both ways, right?
Yeah.
Because some people never go on a vacation because they want to work 20, like it takes discipline to say, hey, I need to rest and I need to force myself.
That was me. I did not take a vacation I used to actually joke around in back to the Kirby days. I used to think, I'm going to beat you because you have to stop and eat. I literally did. I'm like, I'm going to beat you today because I'm going to sell more or whatever because you have to stop and eat. I don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the wrong mind. You can get so driven where you have the goal, like a rhino. I call it a rhino. Like you just put your head down and go after it, right? Like,
well, you know what's funny is I have the opposite approach where I've been resting, every Sunday and every weekend for like years, long time. And like, I just know how much rest is needed and how much it like makes me just
rejuvenates you.
Yeah. I already know it's God directed for the way to live.
Yes.
And so when I see my competition not resting and they do it, I'm just like, bro, you are going to get smoked.
You're going to get smoked.
You don't even know that you're going to get smoked. And you're like, you have this lie thinking that you're outworking. You're not.
Right.
You're out burning out quicker.
Right. You're burning out quicker. Yeah. You do. You only have so much, not just time, but energy.
For sure.
People don't put enough emphasis on that too. It's like what energy you're going to bring to the table. If you're just constantly working all the time and you're not taking I call it the 3 R's, man. You got to relax.
Yeah.
Right? You got to rejuvenate. You got to renew.
Yeah.
Right. And you got to understand that those are important to, like, if you have a phone and you're on your phone all the time and it gets down to like 1.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you don't charge, there's no more. That's like no more energy.
Yeah.
And we just constantly we just don't charge, man.
Yeah. And to make sure they don't, if they try to take this clip out of context, my own team, trust me, because they pull random clips. So number 1, when I do work, dude, I'm working as hard as anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm taking discipline with it. It's like, bro, I'm going to be here at 9. I ain't messing around for the next 8 hours.
Right.
I am not going to entertain BS. I'm not going to entertain just stupid stuff that's not pushing us towards the goal.
Yeah.
Like the 30, 40 hours a week I'm here at this office, I am going to crush it.
Yeah. And
I'm going to work really hard with high intention, with high priorities on the most valuable task that we can do as a company.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to check out. And that's what I'm going to do. And like, people mistake hours with hard work.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
It is not.
It's intention.
Yeah. There's different, every hour is created very differently.
I did this thing, we do coaching. You do coaching with like one-on-ones.
Yep.
I used to do a little group thing, but I do one-on-ones now. And I don't do a lot, just do a few whenever I want to do it. But I did this thing called a $10,000 hour activity. I talked about this on Joe Farrell's podcast too, when we talked about it. It's pretty cool. Basically, you have $1 hour or $10 hour activities, $100 hour activities, $10,000 or $1,000 hour activities, and $10,000 hour activities.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take someone's whole day, 7 days, and what we do is I tell them on their Google Calendar every hour on the hour what I want you to do for the next 7 days, and it's so horrible. It's not easy to do. It's painful to do, but once you do this, it is so eye-opening. Every hour on the hour, it pops up and says, "What did you do this last hour?" And it can't involve personal time, because time with your wife or kids or family is like, priceless. It has to be work stuff. So what did you do work-wise in that last hour, from whenever you get up to you go to bed at night for 7 days? And then when you get all that out, you go in there and you put a dollar amount for those activities.
Yeah.
And what most people are spending. It's spending most of their time doing $10 to $100 hour activities.
Yeah.
And then they're wondering why they're not getting things done.
Yeah.
And they're wondering why they're not achieving the goal that they want to, and all these other things. And once you start to realize, like, you need to figure, how do you get down to the $1,000 to $10,000 hour activities and do more of that?
Well, I think the reason why people don't know is because there are very few times where you're actually being paid right then and there.
Right.
$10,000 for the activity.
Right.
Right. And so for them, it's like, well, is making content a $10,000 an hour activity? I would argue for me, yes.
Right.
It is.
Right.
Right now, I'm doing $10,000 plus hour activities.
Right.
Right. Now, that's not the case for everyone.
Right.
If I'm working on a new product, like this Novation course I was talking about, it's like, dude, this is going to bring in a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it only took me a few hours to go film it.
Right.
It's worth it could be $1 million an hour activity.
Sure. Yeah. It could bring in a lot. Yeah.
Who knows? Right.
But you're not like, you know, if you send an email, if you freaking,
no,
you need to correct a Word document, a template.
Yeah.
You know, you want to send a direct mail thing. A lot of people are doing those things.
For anyone listening, I would classify it like this. You have what I would call admin task activities, which you just said, emails, all this stuff. Those are worth $10 an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have legit, I am selling something. I'm on a sales call. I'm doing a deal. And you can quantify what that is worth based on what it actually made you, you know, on average. Because you're not going to close every sale. Like, look at it for the month and say, oh, you know, I spent 100 hours on sales calls, talking to sellers, talking to clients, talking to prospective customers, whatever.
Right.
And we brought in, let's just say $100,000.
Right.
Well, if I spent 100 hours and I brought in 100,000, it's worth $1,000 an hour every time I am on a sales call.
Right.
And then you look at what I would call long-term building things that actually never produce money while you are doing them. They're only creating fruit later on, that allow you to make the $1,000 an hour sales call.
They're the investing things,
yeah. These things are brand. These things are new products. These things are
joint ventures. Sometimes,
you know, interviewing your next employee who could potentially take all this work off your workload that frees you up. So, like, those are what the $10,000 an hour tasks really are.
Right.
So
yeah, that's it. I mean. But if you do that, it's interesting once we do that with a client and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm spending all that time. Because you don't realize, like, you might spend 40, 50 hours a week doing a lot of admin activities.
Oh, for sure. Most people do.
And you do it out of like convenience.
Driving.
And
how much time are you driving?
Yeah, driving. I mean, there's one guy he was going to his job and doing the drywall like himself, like, because he's saving money.
Yeah.
And once you realize, like, you're a business owner.
Yep.
You don't go drywall.
Yeah.
Like, you don't do that if you're a business owner. You
find one more deal. It'll make you way more than the drywall.
It's like, but it's just a way of thinking to get you to these different levels. What do they say? What got you here won't take you there. If you're trying to move these kind of different levels, and it's like, you know, $100,000 business, a $500,000 business. Now you get to $1 million business. You can't, all these different levels, $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, you can't do the same thing to get to each one of those. You have to change you have to change things to be able to get there. And then from $1 million to a $5 million business, and then you can't do these same things. You have to change everything the way you do it. And that's what's hard for entrepreneurs to do.
100%. Well, bro, I enjoyed this conversation.
I did too, man. I talked about stuff I haven't talked about in a long time or even ever, probably.
That's the point of this podcast. Guys, if you like us going deeper, spending more time uncovering everything, let me know in the comments. Let me know with that subscribe button. And go check out Cory. We'll link to all of his stuff that he talked about, takedown funding and his personals and everything else. So you guys go check that out, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.